Yeah, so guys, I'll be honest with you. I am a little burned out. But apparently there are people who don't, well, think that I deserve some rest. So, to those people, I dedicate this video, which is a live reading of Asylum chapter 26. I chose this because, quite frankly, from all the stuff I have to update on, that is the shortest one with a little over 5,000 words. From Hoopy Mackie Project Sunflower Harmony, we have... oh, I have something here. Someone added... okay. 13,000 words and 8,000 words. And from this one, we have... there it is. 14,000 words. So I chose the shortest one because if I had my way, I wouldn't do it at all because I don't feel like it. I'm totally not feeling it. So I'll do this live reading and live editing to show you how much work, how much time actually is in this. By the way, if you ask yourself why I'm putting this over here, I have a second screen on, and I have that in full screen mode on the other screen, like this. Nah, come on, like this, and so I can see the text correctly. So let's begin. Yay. Okay, I should set the microphone to my Blue Yeti or I'll be angry later. Let's see if I have the Blue Yeti. Yep, Blue Yeti is configured here. Okay, let's start. Asylum. Asylum. Chapter 26. Now I'll save this. And export it in the folder to edit as an MP3, because I added the parts separately later on. Okay, let's begin. Twilight's groan echoed around the cafeteria. Next Friday? Right so, said Applejack with a sage nod. That conference will last all week. Rarity doesn't get back till Wednesday, and once she gets back, she still has meetings, papers to file, work to catch up on. I get it, snapped Twilight, turning away with a huff. She let her eyes wander over the rest of the staff table. A few nurses and orderlies were hunched over their own trays. At the opposite end sat Nurse Ratchet like a lord holding court, the orderly. At the opposite end sat Nurse Ratchet like a lord holding court. The orderly that was the current target of her displeasure was visibly wilting as she berated. At the opposite end sat Nurse Ratchet like a lord holding court. The orderly that was... At the opposite end sat Nurse Ratchet like a At the opposite end sat Nurse Ratchet like a lord holding court. The orderly that was a current target of her displeasure was visibly wilting as she berated him. It was a conversation Twilight was glad not to be privy to. Nurse Ratchet caught Twilight's curious gaze from the corner of her vision and paused just long enough to give Twilight one of her broad smiles, the humor in her cheeks never quite reaching her eyes. Twilight shivered. Her reflections jaundiced gaze held more sincerity. She turned back to Applejack, swallowing her frustration. "And you're absolutely sure she can't make it back any sooner?" "Sorry, Sugar Cube, but if you'll need, I can always arrange another social worker to speak with you. Would you like me to set up something tomorrow? You can be sure I will be there if you let me." Tossing her schedule into a mental trash bin, Twilight let out a long sigh. No, that's okay. It's only another week. I can wait till then. All I really need is the two of you together. "I know you trust me in Rarity, but there are other ponies who can help you too. There isn't a reason to delay if it's There isn't a reason to delay if it... There isn't a reason to delay if it's something important," she added, concern coloring her voice despite the soft smile. "Don't wait till you see the fire to report smoke." "Don't worry, it's nothing like that. I just need to get something off my chest. It's sort of personal, and I really only feel comfortable discussing it with you two." Twilight's hoof reached up to squeeze a doll in her pocket, feeling the faint weight of the key inside it. Her thoughts darkened as what she'd told in the bathroom... Her thoughts darkened as what she'd been told in the bathroom replayed itself. She licked her lips. "Applejack?"
"Yeah?"
Does Big Mac have any regrets?" Applejack's smile grew hard and thin.
"What do you mean?"
"I remember what you said he did how he did the right thing by coming back to help support you and your mom. He gave up a lot for the family. Does he regret leaving school?"
"No,"
Applejack replied, a little too quickly. Her expression softened as she glanced around, noting looks from the nurses further down the table.
"Come with me,"
she said as she stood up, gesturing for Twilight to follow her. Finding a quiet pocket beyond any curious ears, Applejack turned back to Twilight, her voice a firm whisper. She squeezed Twilight's shoulder.
"What's really bothering you, Sugar Cube?"
"When you talked about what he did, you made it sound like he gave up so much. I can't imagine how he could avoid being bitter about what he was forced to do."
"He was a little upset when he didn't get to finish his education or get a job in the big city like our parents wanted. But no, he doesn't regret coming back to the farm. It was the right thing to do, and that's all that mattered to him."
Just saying, I can't believe that somehow. At least not deep down. "So, he doesn't doubt that he made the right choice?" Twilight pressed.
"Life ain't perfect, Twilight. It wasn't fair him having to leave school, but there isn't a force to... It wasn't fair him having to leave... It wasn't fair him having to leave school, but there isn't a force on Equestria that would have kept him from doing what was necessary to keep that farm running. If anything, he's glad he gave up what he did, because the only other choice was to give up on his family. And that would have eaten him up inside. There are no regrets when we do what's right for ones we love. Big Mac knew what he was giving up, but he was doing it for love. How could he regret that?
Silence followed Applejack's words. She seemed lost in thought before she remembered Twilight was standing next to her. She gave Twilight a sheepish grin.
Sorry, I didn't mean to prattle on like that. I don't know what could... I don't know what came over me.
It was exactly what Twilight had expected her to say, but she still felt the tension seep out of her muscles. Really, it's fine, she said. It helped to hear you say that.
Well, I'm glad I could answer... Well, I'm glad I could answer your questions,
Applejack said, unable to hide the faint confusion there.
But why are you wondering about my brother anyway?
Just curious. Twilight lied with an easy grace, but her smile was genuine. Thanks for the talk, Applejack. Twilight could feel both Applejack and Nurse Ratched watching her as she turned away and slipped back into There's a word missing. Twilight could feel both Applejack and Nurse Ratched watching her as she turned away and slipped back into the sea of patients, leaving the doctors to their meal. Sliding into her seat again, Twilight wasn't surprised to find Pinkie Pie and Rainbow Dash waiting with matching expressions. "What was that all about?" they asked in stereo. Twilight waved her hoof. "Just double-checking that everything is going ahead as scheduled. They're not as punctual as I would have... hoped, but it wouldn't affect... They're not as punctual as I would have hoped, but it shouldn't affect my timetable. I just need to double-check after lunch, just to be sure." "It must have been good news, though, because you look much..." Pinkie. "It must have been good news, though, because you look much so happy, so," Pinkie said. "I do feel better." Mulling it over, Twilight nodded. "Yeah, I guess sometimes it helps to get a different opinion and see things from another perspective, even when you know you're right. Your friends can be a pillar for you without them even knowing it." Pinkie Pie smiled at her words, but Rainbow Dash just looked mildly irritated. "I don't care about the touchy-feely, pillory stuff. What's the plan, Egghead?" "Pinkie and we found something important a few days ago." Twilight ignored Pinkie. Twilight ignored Pinkie's nervous glances at Rainbow Dash, focusing on keeping her voice just about... By the way, I'm not going to add sound effects to this. No way. Twilight ignored Pinkie's nervous glances at Rainbow Dash, focusing on keeping her voice just above the background din. "Something big." Rainbow raised an eyebrow. "How big?" "Big enough to bring the whole hospital down." It was a crude exaggeration, but from the way Rainbow's face lit up, it had the desired effect. "That's what I'm talking about," Rainbow declared with a predatory grin. "So, come on, show it to me." Twilight blinked. "Right now?" "Duh! If I'm going to risk my flying privileges, I want to know it's worth it." "Well, I don't think I can," said Twilight said Twilight as she glanced around at the crowded cafeteria. Not right at the moment, anyway. Besides, it wouldn't do you any good because it's all very technical concerning magic and medicine and that sort of thing. Rainbow's excitement boiled away as her face contorted in anger. So? She asked, spitting out the question. You don't think I'm smart enough to understand it? Because I am. I might not be an egghead like you or like reading and doing math and stuff like that, but I'm not stupid. I don't care what you or the doctors think. I'm not stupid, understand? Pinky leaned forward, her shoulders gently nudging Twilight away from Rainbow's focus. We know, Rainbow, you're not stupid. Okay, is it Pinky now? She said, tilting her head at the nearby tables. No. Yes, it's Pinky. Pinky Oh, how I hate this. Pinky leaned forward, her shoulder gently nudging Twilight away from Rainbow's focus. We know, Rainbow, you're not stupid, but there are lots of ponies around right now, she said, tilting her head at the nearby tables. Twilight has to take lots of precautions because this is really super secret stuff. She can't afford to be found out. Rainbow pointed a hoof at Pinkie Pie. Has she shown you what it is? Not really, Pinkie admitted. Then why do you trust her? Maybe she's just not... Then why do you trust her? Maybe she's just another nutjob who thinks she's the man in the moon. She prodded Pinkie in the chest before giving Twilight a dark glare. I've heard the stories about you. I asked around. You're not like the rest of us. You don't get to leave when you get better. They can't give you more time... They can't give you more time to a lifter. To a lifer. They can't give more time to a lifer, but ponies like me and Pinky and Fluttershy, they can lock us up, decide we're dangerous and stuff. When I fight back, there's a real risk involved. Twilight stared at Rainbow, her brow furrowed in worry. The word echoed through her mind. Lifer. Her mouth bent into a slight frown. Of course, those who put me in there want everyone, myself included, to believe that I'll never get out. They want to hope to wither and die. They want hope to wither and die. That is That is exactly why I need to do this and face the risks. That is exactly why I need to do this and face the risks of escape. There are worse things than just being locked up. Frowning, Rainbow glanced between the two mares. Pinky mimed a cutting motion above her forehead. Look, just because you're cooler than... Okay. Oh yeah, I remember now. And by the way, sorry if Twilight's voice sounds a lot like Blackjack. But yeah, can't really do much about that, so yeah. Look, just because you're cooler than some of the nerds here doesn't mean I'm gonna stick my neck out just you. Look, just because you're cooler than some of the nerds here doesn't mean I'm gonna stick my neck out for you just cause you asked, Kay? Rainbow crossed her arms. If you want my help, you gotta earn it. I'm not gonna show you what I have right this minute, Twilight said with a little more force. And that's final. Damn. I'm not gonna show you what I have right this minute, Twilight said with a little more force. And that's final. Damn. Sorry for all the burping, but
My stomach's going crazy. Didn't sleep well the last few nights.
Chill your hoofs, Brainiac. I understand. If you want my help, you'll show it to me later. I'm talking about proving that you're not gonna wimp out on me if we do become a team. We proved that just getting this information. I don't care what you say you did,
Rainbow said, her voice catching on the last word.
The Wonderbolts have tryouts, so I have tryouts. If you wanna join me, you gotta show me what you're capable of. I don't just let just anyone hang out with me. I don't let just anyone hang out with the Dash.
Pinky glanced over at Twilight, who had the fight to keep from rolling her eyes. Pinky glanced over at Twilight, who had to fight to keep from rolling her eyes.
Fine. What do you want me to do?
Smirking, Rainbow turned and pointed across the lunchroom.
See that mare there? The greeny, bluey one with the golden mane?
Twilight and Pinkie Pie nodded in unison.
Her name is Lightning Dust. She was responsible for killing one of Fluttershy's birds, so I want you to get a little payback for her. Payback?
The color drained from Twilight's face.
What kind of payback?
There was a sharp crack as Rainbow smacked her hoofs together.
I want you to smash her smug face in. That's horrible, said Pinkie, covering her mouth. No, it isn't. She deserves it, but for...
Oh, I'm getting through this pretty good, at a pretty good pace, I must say. But it's still... We'll see.
No, it isn't. She deserves it for what she did to Fluttershy. You can't do this, Twilight,
Pinkie said, looking not nervous. Pinkie said, looking nauseous. Nauseous. Pinkie said, looking nauseous.
Where's the good ponies, remember?
Twilight gave Rainbow a measured look.
If you want revenge, why don't you do it yourself? I have my reasons,
Rainbow replied, a hint of red coloring her cheeks.
I'm like being watched too closely by the doctors to get away with it. And besides, this is about...
Oh, yeah.
And besides, this is about you showing you've... And besides, this is about you showing you've got the mettle to be with me. Spitfire doesn't take no whims when recruiting for the Wonderbolts, and that means I don't either. So, isn't there something else I could do instead?
Asked Twilight.
I don't want to draw too much attention to myself right now either. Couldn't I do your homework or clean your room? Spitfire said in an interview that...
That I would like to see. Twilight cleaning her room.
Spitfire said in an interview that the Wonderbolts can't work without absolute trust. So I need to know you're a team player. And if you want to be my... And if you want to be my number 2, then you better get used to following orders, said Rainbow as she puffed out her chest.
Pinkie leaned across the table with a near maniac... Pinkie leaned across the table with a near manic look on her face.
Please, we're supposed to help ponies, not hurt them. I'm not a fighter, Rainbow. I can't beat up another pony. Then what I... Then what use are you?
She growled. Twilight steepled her hoofs and gave Rainbow an appraising look.
To be clear, you want me to get into a fight with Lightning Dust? To be clear, you want me to get into a fight with Lightning Dusk to prove I'm not a wimp? You promise that if I do this, you will help me?
Pinky gasped, but Twilight ignored her, watching Rainbow closely.
Of course, as long as you give her a hard time, you're in. And like every Wonderbolt, I'm a man of my word. Twilight, you can't do this!
Twilight repeated. Twilight, Pinky. Why would Twilight talk to herself? Oh yeah, she's in an asylum. Pinky repeated, her voice cracking. There was a long pause. With deliberate care, Twilight reached her hoof across the stick. With deliberate care, Twilight reached her hoof across the table. With a savage grin, Rainbow gripped it in her own and pumped it up and down. Twilight turned to the aghast Pinkie Pie as she stood up.
Walk with me.
The two of them walked down the long rows of lunch tables, ignored by the masses of hungry ponies. Twilight could feel Rainbow's gaze on the back of her head. Pinkie leaned in close.
Why did you agree to that? You can't just get into a fight and hurt another pony because Rainbow wants you to. I need to earn Rainbow's trust. She's one of my friends and the element of loyalty. Rainbow is the element of...
Yeah, I would argue with that as well, but of course, yeah.
Rainbow's just the element of being a big meanie. You can't do this.
Pinkie placed a hoof on Twilight's shoulder, halting her in place.
I won't let you.
Twilight exhaled and massaged her temple.
Pinkie. Don't you pinky me, Twilight. I had my doubts after what happened in Dr. Rose's office. I let it go because you're my best friend, but I'm not gonna let you become a big bully to... Don't you pinky me, Twilight. Don't you pinky me, Twilight. I had my doubts after what happened in Dr. Rose's office. I let it go because you're my best friend, but I'm not gonna let you become a big bully just to impress Rainbow Dash. If you won't stop, then I'll tell Dr. AJ and... I'll tell Dr. AJ on you and tell her everything.
No, you won't, Twilight said, breathing through her clenched teeth. She could feel her temper... struggle to... Yeah, after speaking Pinkie Pie for a while, She could feel her temper struggle to break free, forcing her to clamp down harder.
You have no reason to, because I'm not going to hurt her.
Some of the defiance on Pinkie's face evaporated.
But I thought you said you were going to do that, but...
This is going to be so embarrassing.
But I thought you was... But I thought you said you were going to do what Rainbow said and beat up
Lightning Dust, She's an egghead, Pinkie. She can't beat up an athlete.
But I thought you said you were going to do what Rainbow Dash said. But I thought you were... But I thought you said you were going to do what Rainbow said and beat up Lightning Dust. Yeah. But I thought you were...
But I thought you said, yeah. Oh, damn it.
But I thought you said you were going to... But I thought you said you were going to do what Rainbow said and beat up Lightning Dust. I'm going to do exactly what I promised her.
Twilight reached out to squeeze Pinkie's arm.
You have to trust me on this. Pinkie promised that I'm not going to hurt Lightning Dust.
Pinkie tilted her head to the side. Fucking hates these people with their motocross cycles.
Going to hurt Lightning Dust.
Seriously, their motors are so loud that my floor vibrates. Pinkie tilted her head to the side.
I don't understand. You don't have to understand. You don't have to understand just yet. All you need to do is alert the nurses that something is happening. All you need to do is alert the nurses that something is happening at Lightning Dust's table as soon as I get there, all right? Confusion and distrust flashed across Pinky's face, but eventually she gave a slow nod. Okay, Twilight, I trust you. Twilight watched Pinky.
And now I know what's going on. She will pick a fight with Lightning Dust, and the nurses will interfere. They will both get into solitary, and that's that. Yeah. Fresh tea, so freaking hot. Ouch.
Ja, da war ich. Twilight watched Pinky reluctantly stroll away before she turned back.
Damn it.
Twilight watched Pinky reluctantly stroll away before she turned back to her target. Lightning Dust was at the end of the next table, sitting amidst a small bunch of patients. All Pegasi, Twilight noted, and involved in a passionate discussion where she seemed to be the central topic. She was facing away from Twilight, leaving her pack exposed. Twilight glanced over at Rainbow Dash, who just smiled back and gestured for her to keep going. She took a few deep breaths and put one hoof putting one hoof in front of the other, she moved in. The Pegasi only noticed Twilight when she was a few paces away, the whole group glancing up at the intruder as one. Lightning paused mid-sentence and, with an air of supreme disinterest, slowly turned around to face Twilight. She eyed Twilight up and down, a slow smirk revealing her teeth. "You want something, bonehead?" she asked, to a smattering of sycophantic snickers. She asked, to a smattering of Why? Why always with those words? She asked, to a smattering of sycophantic snickers. Twilight nodded. From the corner of her eye she could see a pair of flustered nurses making a beeline in her direction, Pinkie Pie following in their wake. They were about 30 seconds out, from her estimations, which left her a small window of opportunity to strike. Well, what does a ground pounder like you want with Broadhoof's best flyer? Lightning asked, her smirk only growing wider as Twilight squared off in front of her. Looking for an autograph? Twilight spit right in Lightning's face. Okay, I didn't see that one coming, but it was a good one. There it is, so part 2. I'm getting through this quicker than I anticipated, seriously. But, as you might see, come on. I'm reading this on Fimfiction and not on... For example, I read For Equestria Project Horizons from a PDF file. Now that I've got this part done, I'll go and have a smoke. Be right back, guys.
And there I am again. Actually, I had something like this done for Project Horizons Chapter 11 as well, back in the day. I think 1 or 2 months ago, I don't know anymore. But the file got corrupted, so it was never uploaded. At this point, I would like to thank Lechal for suggesting peppermint tea to me to help my sore throat. It really helps. So now that this part is done, I'll open a new one. And ow, owie, owie, owie. It's just a little owie, owie, owie. It's just a little peroxide. It ain't gonna kill you. Still hurts, Twilight said defensively, her voice given a nasal timbre from the bandages shrouding her muzzle. Her ears still rang with the shouts and howls of the panicked Millie minutes before, but she still... Her ears still rang with the shouts and howls of the panicked melee minutes before, but she wasn't sure that wasn't part of some undiagnosed concussion either. Twilight tightened her grip on the ice pack she was holding against her forehead. She'd certainly taken enough hoofs to the head to make that a valid worry. Applejack rolled her eyes as she... Oh, that's Applejack speaking. Shit. Okay, start over. Owie, owie, owie!
Well, it's just a little peroxide. That ain't gonna kill you.
Still hurts, Twilight said defensively, her voice given a nasal timbre from the bandages shrouding her muzzle. Her ears still rang with the shouts and howls of the panicked melee minutes before, but she wasn't sure that wasn't part of some undiagnosed concussion either. Twilight tightened her grip on the ice pack she was holding against her forehead. She'd certainly taken enough hoofs to the head to make that a valid worry. Applejack rolled her eyes as she removed the cotton swab Twilight's... Yeah, I gotta scroll down so I can read the next part. Applejack rolled her eyes as she removed the cotton swab from Twilight's nose and passing it to the heaviest nurse standing beside her. Applejack rolled her eyes as she removed the cotton swab from Twilight's nose and passing it to the heavy-set nurse standing beside her.
Well, you deserve it after the stunt you pulled,
she said, her voice dripping with disapproval.
What in the wide, wide world of Equestria were you thinking picking a fight with another pony like that?
Averting her gaze, Twilight slunk... Yeah, she can't rightly tell on Rainbow Dash for this. And now I guess I know why Rainbow Dash wanted Twilight to do it, because she didn't want to get pounded by a whole group of Pegasi. Averting her gaze, Twilight slunk a little... I wanted to say slunk over. Averting her gaze, Twilight slunk a little lower in her seat. I'm sorry.
You're just lucky Pinkie Pie saw what was happening so soon,
Applejack continued, giving the downcast Pinkie a friendly smile. Pinkie returned it with one of her own, looking a little less haggard than she had been a few minutes prior. Twilight wasn't sure if it... Still trying to give my best performance here, even though I really want to sleep. Twilight wasn't sure if it had been Pinkie Pie's endless pleading on her status as... Twilight wasn't sure if it hadn't... Or play a game or something. I mean, it's 3 p.m. Twilight wasn't sure if it had been Pinkie's endless pleading on her status as a patient assistant which had really persuaded Applejack to let her stay, but it was a small comfort in a storm of minor agonies. Oh, my damn stomach.
Twilight wasn't sure if it had been Pinky's endless pleading or her... Twilight wasn't sure if it had been Pinky's endless pleading or her status as a patient assistant which had really persuaded Applejack to let her stay, but it was small comfort in the storm of minor agonies. "You're lucky you escaped with just a few scrapes and bruises," the nurse, sweetheart, added as she helped Applejack finishing bandaging Twilight's muzzle. "If we hadn't gotten there in time, there's no telling what would have happened. Fights are not something to be taken lightly, don't you know?" Applejack nodded.
"Exactly. There's never any reason to pick a fight. Big Philly settles the differences with words, not hoofs."
There was a moment of incredulity before Twilight let out a loud groan. She could still taste blood in her mouth, and the pair of them were already talking down to her. It never ended at Broadhoof. I'd be seriously pissed if someone talked to me like that as well. The rest of the lunchroom had long since emptied of every pony else, leaving a single orderly and a pair of janitors, the group's only observers. An opened first aid kit sat nearby amidst a few abandoned trays. Twilight watched the two janitors finishing mopping up the remains of the incident, a dozen frantic hoofs having turned all the spilled lunches into a disgusting puree across the tiles. Twilight expected more than a few drops of her own blood were mixed in with... Twilight expected more than a few drops of her blood were mixed with... Come on, guys, it's Sunday, I want to play. Twilight expected more than a few drops of her blood were mixed in with the discarded food. The fight, if being punched in the muzzle before crumpling to the floor could be considered a fight, had lasted mere seconds, but Lightning and her friends had used every one of them. The evidence of their handiwork was quite apparent on Twilight's face. She shifted her ice pack to the other side of her head, fighting the urge to wince as Applejack double-checked her bandages. Whatever painkillers Nurse Sweetheart had given her had yet to make a difference.
"Honestly, Twilight, I thought you were smarter than this,"
Applejack continued as she returned the bandages and antiseptic to the first aid kit, sounding as though she'd caught apple bloom with her hoof in the cookie jar. "I know."
"If it weren't for the fact that no pony else was hurt, you'd be in solitary with lightning dust right now."
"I guess getting the snot beaten out of me was punishment enough."
"Don't you sass me,"
said Applejack with a lean glare. "Sorry." As Nurse Sweetheart closed the latches on the first aid kit, Applejack moved to Twilight's side. Her expression softened, just like her tone of voice.
"This is all because of what we talked about earlier. You wanted..." "What you wanted Rarity about?"
Twilight tried to shake her head, but the sudden rush just made her headaches throb painfully. "No, this was just an accident. I didn't mean to cause any pony trouble." Twilight lied with just enough remorse to keep Applejack on her side. Being a bloody, bruised, and battered mess was a painful but effective way to learn... Being a bloody, bruised, and battered mess was a painful and... Being a bloody, bruised, and battered mess was a painful but effective way to earn sympathy. Despite the performance, doubt still lingered on Applejack's face. Handing the first aid kit to Nurse Sweetheart, she silently waved for the orderly by the one... Handing the first aid kit to Sweetheart. Handing the first aid kit to Nurse Sweetheart, she silently waved for the orderly by the door to come over before finally facing Twilight.
"I have to go file a report about this. You might not have to..." "I have to go file a report about all this. You might not have one..." You might not have meant to cause any trouble, but this is still one heck of a mess I gotta deal with, and since a bloody nose isn't enough to keep you out of class, I'm going to have Golden Delicious here take you to your next period. He'll keep an eye on you till I get back.
She held Twilight's gaze for a few heartbeats.
And please, for your sake, try to stay out of trouble until then.
After a curt farewell, both Applejack and Sweetheart trot away, leaving Twilight and Pinkie Pie alone with the orderly. Twilight glanced up at the Amber Stallion. "Golden Delicious?"
Yup,
he said with a deep drawl.
"And just call me Golden."
There was a pause as Twilight narrowed her eyes. "I've seen you before. Aren't you related to Applejack?" Golden Delicious. I remember that stallion from episode 1, season 1 of My Little Pony. But I'm pretty sure he was a mare then, and in the series, Golden Delicious, if I remember correctly, was that crazy cat lady. In season 4.
Yup,
he repeated, this time with a hint of a smile on his face.
"Cousins 3 times removed. She helped me get a job here, actually."
He extended an arm to Twilight, who gratefully pulled herself upright. Light-headed, she swayed and winced, but he didn't let her fall.
"Take it easy now. Don't let you hurting yourself again." "Don't need you hurting yourself again." "Don't need you hurting yourself again."
She let out a derisive. She let out a derisive snort on. She let out a derisive snort, only to yelp as her abused nostrils screamed in protest. Just breathing through her nose turned the air into sandpaper. Her legs trembled as she swayed in place. "Don't worry about that, Mr. Golden, sir," Pinkie said as she took her place by Twilight's side, acting as fuzzy pink buttress for the waiting. Pinkie said as she took her place by Twilight's side, acting as a fuzzy pink buttress for the swaying unicorn. "I'll make sure she's okay. Well, as A-okay as a pony with the I'll make sure she's A-okay. Well, as okay as a pony. Well, as A-okay as a pony with a face full of bandages can get." Biting back a retort, Twilight leaned. Biting back a retort, Twilight leaned against. Yeah. Fuck this. Ow! Burnt my throat. Biting back a retort, Twilight leaned against Pinkie as the pair followed along with. Biting back a retort, Twilight leaned against Pinkie as the pair followed along in Golden's wake. Inhaling through her mouth to avoid any more agony, Twilight gave Pinkie a nod of thanks. She smiled back. "Don't mention it." "You look like you're feeling better," said Twilight. "At least compared to a few minutes ago." Well, a few minutes ago, my best friend was bleeding and crying all over herself." Twilight frowned. "I was not crying." "Yes, you were," Pinkie replied with a playful wink. Her expression grew serious. "But really, I'm proud of you. You didn't hurt any pony. Well, I guess you kinda got the crud back. But really, I'm proud of you. You didn't hurt any pony. Well, I guess you kinda got the crud backed out of you, but that doesn't count. That doesn't count? Pinkie Pie? I was really worried that you were gonna do... I was really worried that you would... I was really worried that you were gonna do just what Rainbow Dash said and be a bully, but you didn't. That takes guts and a thick skull.
Twilight tried to give her an annoyed glare, but it fizzled in the face of Pinky's laughter, and Twilight couldn't help but chuckle in turn. Despite the pain, it was finally starting to feel like she'd made the right decision.
Twilight Sparkle. Yes?
Twilight said automatically, spinning around fast enough to leave everything confusing.
Yes?
Twilight said automatically, spinning around fast enough to leave everything a confusing swirl. The dizziness passed to reveal Nurse Ratched and her shadow Silas. The dizziness passed to reveal Nurse Ratched and her shadow Silas steaming towards them at full speed. Even Golden Delicious took a step back as Nurse Ratched drew herself up in front of the group, her golden eyes burning with displeasure. Golden Delicious bowed in her direction, swallowing loudly. "Ma'am?" Nurse Ratched didn't even look up, her gaze boring into Twilight.
"Leave us."
He swallowed loudly.
"But, ma'am, Dr. Applejack told me."
The nurse halted Golden Delicious with a single command.
"I said leave us."
He hurriedly bowed again and backed away, pulling the reluctant Pinkie Pie along with him. She tried to protest, but he forced her ahead of... Having worked in such a place before, I would definitely say no. I'm staying. I was ordered to stay with this patient, and you don't have the authority to override what a doctor said. She tried to protest, but he forced her ahead of him as they vanished around the corner. Slowly, Twilight turned to face Nurse Ratched alone.
"Twilight Sparkle,"
Nurse Ratched repeated, each syllable
"Twilight Sparkle,"
Nurse Ratched repeated, each syllable delivered with the weighty impact of a judge's gravel.
"That was inexcusable. We do not tolerate fighting in this hospital." "But she hit me,"
Twilight protested weakly.
"And she hit me." "But she hit me,"
Twilight protested weakly.
"A proper unicorn doesn't get into
Oh, now we're going the lady way, or...
A proper unicorn doesn't get into petty brawls as a way of acting out. I have no patience for troublemakers. If you have any problems, you are to bring them to your doctor's attention. If Applejack cannot solve them, then you are to discuss with...
It's obvious that she doesn't like Applejack.
If Applejack cannot solve them, then you are to discuss them with me.
She took a step closer, her voice a pale whisper.
And if I ever even suspect you of crossing the line and causing problems in my hospital, you will regret it. Have I made myself clear? Yes, Nurse Ratched. Good.
Nurse Ratched's...
My poor throat.
It hurts. It hurts doing so many voices. And these... I mean, I get that the weather's getting better, but do they have to drive in circles with their damn motocross bikes? Nurse Ratched's gaze lingered for an anxiety-inducing length of time on Twilight's horn before she gestured for Twilight to join her.
Come along, dearie. Come along, dearie. I will walk you to your next class personally. Twilight obeyed, moving alongside Nurse Ratched as they moved through the green and white halls, Silas bringing up the rear. There was the faintest sound in Nurse Ratched's... I'm just saying that Thaw, T-H-A-W, I don't know how to pronounce that. There was the faintest sough in There was the faintest sough in Nurse Ratched's expression as she watched Twilight from the corner of her eye. It's unfortunate that I have to speak to you like that, but I can't allow you to get out of line just because you think you're a special case. You have to learn that we don't tolerate... You'll have to learn that we don't tolerate these sorts of things. Discipline is paramount in a place like Broadhoof. Without it, we have anarchy. Unable to find a suitable response, Twilight simply nodded. Really, we are all just relieved you didn't end up seriously hurt. Things could have been far worse. It's a good thing Pinkie Pie thought what was... It's a good thing Pinkie Pie saw what was happening. She's a dear, and I'm glad you've been making friends with her. Trustees like Pinkie are a real blessing. There was nothing authentic in Nurse Ratched's smile. What happened to the Pegasus? Twilight asked. Lightning Dust is going to spend the rest of the week in solitary confinement, and we've clipped her wings. Nurse Ratched gave a dismissive sniff. Sometimes grounding them for a few months is the only way to get a Pegasus to listen to reason. Twilight frowned. That sounds like a... That sounds like a lot just for a bloody nose. You're lucky she didn't break it. The last time she was in a fight, she ended up fracturing another pony's leg. That one is a serial troublemaker. It still seems harsh to me. She broke the rules, Nurse Ratched stated firmly, her tone making it clear the issue was settled. I know you're a good girl, so you're feeling a little guilty, but it's what she deserves. The tougher we are now, the less likely she is to act out in the future. Could I at least talk to her? That would defeat the point.
Why would you want to talk to her, Twilight?
Yeah. Something's up in Skype as I see down here, but I will not open it right now because I don't want you to see my private conversations. Sorry, but that's just how it is. That would defeat the whole point of solitary confinement. I just want to apologize to her. You only have to apologize if you are guilty of something. Nurse Ratched turned to regard Twilight as they walked along. So, why exactly did you go over to Lightning Dust in the first place? I didn't mean to start a fight, it just sort of happened. And it had nothing to do with your new friend Rainbow Dash? Twilight stumbled. What do you mean? I know you've been spending more time with her. Stumbled there on my words. But I'm almost done. Thank God. By the way, second part of this, the actual editing will be silent because I'll have to do it downstairs. I don't have my mic available downstairs. But I'll do stuff like opening a text file and write stuff to you while I'm doing. I know you've been spending more time with her. And right after eating lunch with her, you go out and get into a fight with Rainbow's enemy? Enemy? Asked Twilight. Rainbow Dash has an enemy? Whose leg do you think Lightning got? Oh, now it gets interesting.
Whose leg do you think Lightning Dusk broke? Whose leg do you think Lightning Dusk broke? Some of the color leaked from Twilight's face, but she managed to keep her voice even this time. No, it had nothing to do with Rainbow Dash. We're just friends. If you say so, Nurse Ratchet said with another fake smile. Twilight shivered. When they neared the classroom door... Nurse Ratchet halted Twilight with a firm hoof to the chest. Some of the ice returned to her voice as she leaned in close. Now, this time I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and accept that this was all a misunderstanding. But if you end up in this sort of mess again, misunderstanding or not, I'm going to have to assume that Rainbow Dash is involved and punish her as well. And you don't want to hurt your friends, do you? A chill passed down Twilight's legs. She shook her head. No, ma'am. That's a good girl. Now run along. Twilight ceased the offer, not even By the way, I really knew a nurse like that once, and I reported her because that nurse was a real bitch. I once came into a patient's room because I heard screaming, and I saw that nurse slapping the patient, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing? I was just an intern back then. I wasn't a trained nurse yet, but wow. That was... First thing I did, I was like screaming at her, and after that I went down to our boss and reported her on it. That was not okay, and you never should treat patients, especially in a mental facility, with fear. You have to be like, if they have anxiety problems, you have to be totally understanding and stuff. If they're cutting themselves, the worst thing you can do is give them attention, because most of these patients are actually doing it for attention. So, I'm trained in this, guys, and I know that this nurse would be one nurse I wouldn't be getting along with. Because I often got into trouble with my co-workers because I did everything for my patients. Twilight ceased the offer, not even returning Trixie's greeting as she hustled past the teacher. The other patients looked up at Twilight as she entered, Pinky amongst them. She let out a loud sigh of relief, putting a thankful hoof on Twilight's back as she took her seat in front of her. Oh, wowie, it is so good to see you. I know it's only been like a minute, but I was so worried Nurse Ratchet was going to go all Nurse Ratchet on you. Me too, Twilight admitted, the threat still echoing in her mind. Glancing around the classroom, she gave a slight frown. Hey, Rainbow Dash is... about our age, so I... Voice giving out. Hey, Rainbow Dash is about our age, so why isn't she in class with us? Oh. Twilight turned around in her seat to look at Pinky. She arched an eyebrow. Oh? Pinky rubbed the back of her neck, her cheeks becoming a darker shade of pink. She's in the special class. Twilight's eyes slowly widened. She gestured at the rest of the students. I thought this was a special class. What? Why? Because we're old enough to be graduates and we're still learning about fractions. Pinky glanced down at her desk. But those are hard. Twilight opened her mouth to respond, but thought better of it. Swallowing her words, she turned back around to face the class as... the last few patients were ushered in. A swirl of levitating chalk circled Trixie as she strode up to the blackboard, a stack of papers following in her wake. She set the papers down on her What is that word? Lectern?
No lecture? She set the papers down on her lectern and turned to face the patients seated in the nicked and worn desks. Okay. She set the papers down on her lectern and turned to face the patients seated in the nicked and worn desks. She smiled. "Afternoon, class." They answered as one. "Afternoon, Miss Trixie." "After grading last week's quizzes, it seems we still have trouble understanding how to multiply and divide fractions correctly. I know it can be tough, but this is something you all need to know. So today we'll be going over it all again to make sure no pony is left behind." There was a loud groan from the back of the room. And that concludes this chapter. So yeah, let's save it and export it. By the way, chapter 22 of Project Horizons is in process of being uploaded. For all of you who wonder, I am using my netbook as upload computer basically because I don't want to strain this computer here too much, so this netbook has a very silent cooler and it's all in all energy efficient, so even if it runs you don't hear it, so I have it on almost 24/7. And once I have a video done, either for my gaming channel or for this one, I basically just put it on a stick, put it over there, and let it upload, because these uploads sometimes take up to 20 hours. This concludes this first part of the recording. I will now, after this export is done, stop this recording, shut down the computer, and take it with me downstairs so I can accompany my grandfather, and while I do that, I will edit this chapter and you will see every step that I'm actually doing. Sincerely yours, Visual Pony. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you will enjoy the next part, and yeah, so you just see how long only this short thing takes.
Asylum, Chapter 26.
West.
It would have kept him from doing what was necessary to keep that farm running.
Twilight waved her hoof.
I don't care about the touchy-feely. I don't care. I don't care about the touchy-feely. Or the Dr. Sink. My help, you.
Twilight said with a little more force.
Help, you'll proving that as birds, so by the doc Spitfire. Owie, owie, owie!
Sniff.
from the back of the room.